It was supposed to be a simple demonstration, part of the interspecies exchange program to familiarize the galaxy's brightest young minds with each other's capabilities. The concept of basic physical training varied drastically between species, but no one was prepared for what would unfold when the human, Cadet Morgan, stepped into the training arena. The instructor, a towering Zyran warrior, began the session by displaying the standard defensive tactics of his kind. His alien students nodded approvingly until Morgan's turn came. With a calm, almost nonchalant stance, Morgan requested permission to demonstrate a basic hand-to-hand combat move from Earth. The class watched with curiosity, but that quickly changed to horror. Within moments, Morgan executed a series of rapid, fluid movements that sent the Zyran instructor sprawling to the ground. The students' expressions shifted from amusement to wide-eyed shock as they witnessed what could only be described as a whirlwind of controlled violence, bones cracking under precise blows, incapacitation techniques executed with ease, and an eerie calm that hung over the human like a predator. "This is basic," one alien asked, horrified. The Zyran instructor stood, shaking slightly, unable to hide the fear in his eyes. Basic training on Earth includes combat techniques designed for survival, Morgan explained with a smile, oblivious to the collective dread surrounding them. For the first time, the alien students began to understand the terrifying potential of humanity, something far beyond their expectations. The room was silent as Cadet Morgan stepped back from the fallen Zyran warrior, offering him a hand to stand. The instructor hesitated, still processing the whirlwind of movement that had left him flat on the floor. Slowly, he accepted the gesture, but the air was thick with tension. The alien cadets, once enthusiastic about the training session, now sat in a stunned hush, whispering among themselves. As the instructor regained his footing, a high-ranking Galactic Union observer entered the arena, unaware of the scene that had just unfolded. The observer, a Vrexian with 6 eyes, scanned the room before focusing on the shaken instructor. "Proceed with the demonstration," the observer said, oblivious to the unspoken fear filling the room. Morgan stepped forward once again, ready to demonstrate a second, more advanced technique, but before they could begin, one of the alien cadets, a Nergathian with a translucent, gelatinous form, raised a trembling appendage. "Excuse me, human," it said in a wavering voice. "How is it possible for you to be so effective in combat? Is this something all humans are capable of?" Morgan blinked, genuinely confused by the question. "This is just basic self-defense. Most humans learn it early on in training, for military or survival situations. It's nothing special, really." The class exchanged horrified glances. Nothing special. What hope did they have if this was considered basic? The Zyran instructor, now visibly unsettled, turned to the observer. "This species, they fight not like we do. They neutralize threats with an efficiency that is unsettling." The observer's eyes flickered in curiosity. "Interesting. I had heard humans were resilient, but I didn't expect this." Morgan, noticing the growing unease, tried to ease the tension with a light laugh. "Don't worry, we're not all warriors. We only use these skills when necessary." But the damage was done. The alien cadets looked at their human classmate with a new, overwhelming sense of fear. For the first time, they realized that the galaxy's peaceful coexistence was built on the assumption that every species operated within certain limits that humans, with their basic combat skills, seemed capable of shattering. In the aftermath of the demonstration, whispers about the deadliest species in the galaxy began to circulate in every corner of the Galactic Union Academy. From that day forward, Morgan noticed the cautious glances and the subtle distance the classmates maintained. The humans smiled softly to themselves. They never intended to inspire fear, but they couldn't help but feel a quiet sense of pride in what their species had achieved. Basic or not, humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As the days passed, the tension within the Galactic Union Academy only grew. Whispers about the deadly humans spread from one class to another. Cadet Morgan could feel the weight of every glance, every conversation abruptly ending when they entered a room. It wasn't long before the Academy's senior officials decided to address the matter. One afternoon, Morgan was summoned to the Grand Hall for a clarification session. Seated around the table were representatives from every species attending the academy, including the headmaster, a stern-looking Zygath with a series of flickering antennae that indicated deep contemplation. "Morgan," the headmaster began, his voice firm but not unkind, "your demonstration has caused quite a stir. The other cadets have expressed concerns about your combat abilities. Many are questioning whether it is safe to continue interspecies training with humans." Morgan sighed, realizing that what had started as a simple misunderstanding had escalated into something much larger. "I didn't mean to cause fear," they said earnestly. "Humans aren't a threat. We're here to learn, just like everyone else." An Arcanian diplomat, with crystalline skin that refracted the light, leaned forward. "Perhaps you don't realize the magnitude of what you demonstrated. Our species have evolved in peaceful societies, where combat is ceremonial or symbolic. What you showed us was far beyond what we consider combat. It was total domination." Morgan scratched their head, trying to find the right words. "I understand that it looked extreme, but we humans don't see combat as something glorious. It's a survival mechanism. We've had a violent past, yes, but it's shaped how we approach threats. Self-defense is about ensuring we live to see another day. It's not about being the most dangerous." The Zygath headmaster tapped his fingers thoughtfully. "But you must understand that many here have never encountered violence at that level. For them, the idea that a species could develop such abilities as basic is alarming." Just as the conversation seemed to be turning into a negotiation of peace, the Vrexian observer from the previous demonstration stood up, silencing the room with his presence. "I've reviewed the data," he said in a calm yet authoritative voice. "While the humans' demonstration did reveal exceptional combat proficiency, I believe the reaction stems from a misunderstanding of human culture. They are not warriors by nature, they are survivors." The room was quiet as everyone processed his words. The Vrexian continued, addressing Morgan directly. "Humans are not the first species to be misunderstood. Many civilizations across the galaxy were once feared for their strength, but strength can be tempered by wisdom. I propose that Morgan leads a series of training sessions not in combat, but in human diplomacy and problem-solving." Morgan blinked in surprise. Diplomacy. They had never imagined their combat demonstration would lead to a call for teaching diplomacy, of all things. The Arcanian diplomat nodded slowly. "Yes, if we can learn the human way of peace as well as we've seen their way of combat, perhaps we'll come to understand them better." The headmaster's antennae flickered rapidly, signaling agreement. "I concur. Morgan, you will help us understand what makes humans unique not just in strength, but in spirit." Morgan smiled, the tension in their chest finally easing. "I'd be honored to." In the days that followed, the tone of Morgan's presence at the academy shifted. Rather than being feared for their combat skills, the cadets came to see the human in a new light. Morgan's sessions on negotiation, empathy, and collaboration began to reshape the way other species viewed humanity not as a dangerous enigma, but as a complex, adaptable species with much to offer the galaxy. And yet, in the back of everyone's mind, there lingered a respectful understanding. The humans, for all their diplomacy and peace, were always prepared just in case the need for survival arose again. Months had passed since the fateful combat demonstration, and the Galactic Union Academy was a different place. Morgan's diplomatic training sessions had sparked a wave of understanding and cooperation among the species. Cadets, once wary of the human, now respected their unique perspective, admiring their ability to balance strength and wisdom. However, the galaxy was unpredictable, and soon an external crisis would put those lessons to the ultimate test. Word spread quickly of a threat at the edges of Union space, an aggressive and unknown species, the Zircon, launching sudden attacks on isolated planets. Their tactics were brutal, and they showed no interest in diplomacy. The Union was unprepared for a full-scale invasion, and fear swept through the academy. One evening, the headmaster called an emergency assembly. Representatives from every species gathered in the Grand Hall, their faces etched with concern. "We have received disturbing reports," the headmaster began. "The Zircon are advancing, and it is clear they do not seek peace. We must act swiftly to protect the Union." The room was abuzz with tension as each species debated what to do. Many argued for defense, while others suggested evacuation. Amid the growing chaos, Morgan stood and calmly addressed the assembly. "We've spent months learning to understand each other, finding peace where there was fear," Morgan said, their voice steady. "Now, we face a threat that doesn't understand our ways. We must act, but we need to do so together." An Arcanian diplomat, who had once expressed fear of humans, stood beside Morgan. "What do you propose, Cadet Morgan? You've shown us your skills. Are you suggesting we fight?" Morgan shook their head. "I'm suggesting that we don't wait to be attacked. We can prepare to defend what's ours, but do it in a way that minimizes harm. We have strengths from every species here. If we combine our knowledge, we can create an alliance that stands stronger than any individual force." The Zyran instructor, still haunted by the memory of Morgan's basic combat demonstration, stepped forward. "The human is right. We Zyran have always believed in strength, but this threat requires something more than physical power. We need strategy, coordination, things I have seen Morgan excel in." The headmaster nodded thoughtfully. "Then we form an alliance. Each species brings their unique abilities: Zyran strength, Arcanian technology, Vrexian intelligence, and human adaptability." Morgan added, "And diplomacy. We don't know the Zircon's full intentions. We need to be prepared to defend ourselves, but also open to other possibilities." With that, the Galactic Alliance was born. The following weeks saw the Academy transform into a hub of activity. Each species contributed to the effort, training, developing new technologies, and forming a united defense strategy. Morgan took a central role, coordinating between species, utilizing their newfound diplomacy skills to resolve conflicts and streamline efforts. But the looming threat of the Zircon cast a shadow over the Academy. Then came the day everyone had been bracing for. The Zircon fleet entered Union space, heading directly for a vulnerable colony. The Galactic Alliance, now fully mobilized, sent a fleet of their own to intercept. Morgan stood on the bridge of the flagship, surrounded by representatives from the allied species. "All systems ready," the Arcanian technician reported, their crystalline skin glinting under the ship's lights. "Zyran forces standing by," the warrior instructor said, his voice steady but determined. "Human crew ready for anything," Morgan replied with a calm resolve. As the two fleets faced off, Morgan opened a communication channel to the Zircon, sending a message of peace. For a tense moment, the galaxy held its breath. Then, without warning, the Zircon responded with firepower. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Alien and human ships maneuvered in unison, defending each other, exploiting every advantage their combined knowledge could offer. Morgan, trained in both combat and strategy, led the human forces, using their experience and adaptability to outwit the enemy at every turn. The Zyran warriors, inspired by their once feared human ally, fought with renewed purpose, defending their comrades with unyielding ferocity. But it was the unity of the Galactic Alliance that made the real difference. The Zircon, unaccustomed to facing such a diverse and coordinated force, were driven back for the first time. They encountered an enemy that was more than just soldiers. They were strategists, diplomats, and survivors. In the end, the Galactic Alliance emerged victorious. The Zircon retreated, their once unstoppable advance halted by the power of cooperation. Back at the Academy, the cadets and instructors gathered to celebrate their triumph. Morgan stood at the center of the crowd, no longer seen as a frightening outlier, but as the one who had brought them all together. The headmaster approached, his antennae flickering in approval. "You have shown us that strength comes not from fear, but from unity. Today, the galaxy stands stronger because of it." Morgan smiled, knowing that their journey from misunderstood warrior to respected leader was only the beginning. The Galactic Alliance was now a beacon of hope, a testament to what could be achieved when species put aside their differences and fought for a common good. And so, humanity, once feared for its combat skills, became known across the galaxy for something far greater: their ability to unite the stars. Years have passed since the formation of the Galactic Alliance, and the story of humanity's role in uniting the galaxy had become legend. Morgan, now an esteemed leader in the Galactic Union, had long since retired from combat, dedicating their time to fostering interspecies diplomacy. Yet, the lessons of that fateful demonstration where human combat skills first terrified their alien classmates continued to resonate through the halls of the Academy. Today, a new generation of cadets, from species far and wide, stood at attention in the same training arena where Morgan had once demonstrated what humans called basic combat. The Academy had changed, and so had the galaxy. The Galactic Alliance had flourished, with each species contributing to peacekeeping and scientific exploration. But the specter of conflict always lingered, as new challenges arose from the farthest corners of the universe. The headmaster, now a much older and wiser Zygath, stood before the fresh recruits, his antennae flickering with anticipation. This was a day of tradition, where cadets would be introduced to the story that had shaped the Academy's modern identity. Today, the headmaster began, his voice echoing through the chamber. You will hear the story of a human named Cadet Morgan, who showed us all the power of unity in the face of fear. The cadets listened closely, many of them already familiar with the tale of the human who had terrified their predecessors with combat prowess, only to become the architect of the Galactic Alliance. But as the headmaster recounted the events of that first demonstration, one of the cadets, a young Felinian with sharp, feline features, raised a hand. Headmaster, she said, her voice curious but tinged with awe, is it true that the humans were once feared by all the other species? How did they transform from being seen as a threat to becoming our greatest ally? The headmaster smiled, as if he had been waiting for this very question. It is true that humans were feared for their strength, their adaptability, and their instinct for survival. But what you must understand is that their strength did not lie solely in their ability to fight. He gestured to a holo screen behind him, where images of Morgan, now a respected diplomat, appeared. Humanity's true power came from their willingness to learn, to understand, and to bring others together. They were never the strongest species physically. They didn't have the advanced technology of the Arcanians, nor the sheer resilience of the Zyran, but what they did have was the ability to see the potential in every species, to unite us not through force, but through shared purpose. The cadets were captivated, but the Felinian cadet remained thoughtful. But what about the Jerkon? They never wanted peace. What did the humans do then? The headmaster's smile faded slightly, replaced with a more serious expression. The Jerkon were a test of everything the Galactic Alliance stood for. They came at us with violence, seeking to conquer, and though we offered peace, they chose war. In that moment, humanity and all of us had to fight. The room was quiet, and the headmaster's voice lowered. Humans taught us that peace is always the goal, but it is not always the reality. There are times when survival requires us to defend what we hold dear. And it was humanity's balance in knowing when to fight and when to make peace that led us to victory. They showed us that even in war, unity and strategy could triumph over brute force. The cadets exchanged glances, understanding now what had been at the heart of humanity's influence in the galaxy. It wasn't just about being the strongest in battle. It was about knowing how to turn strength into something greater, into hope, into peace, into a future. The Felinian cadet spoke again, this time with determination in her voice. I want to learn what the humans knew, not just combat, but how they brought us together, how they became leaders. The headmaster nodded approvingly. That is the lesson of Cadet Morgan and humanity. You will learn their methods of strategy, their ways of diplomacy, and yes, their combat techniques. But most of all, you will learn how they shaped the galaxy through understanding. That is the legacy they left behind. As the cadets filed out of the room, eager to begin their training, the headmaster lingered, gazing at the holo screen. Morgan's image flickered, showing them in their many roles: warrior, diplomat, leader. The headmaster whispered softly to himself. Perhaps it was never the combat skills that were most terrifying. It was what they could achieve when wielded with a mind for peace. Outside the academy, the stars glistened over a peaceful galaxy, one that was stronger for the lessons humanity had imparted. And though Cadet Morgan's time had passed, their legacy continued to shape the future of the Galactic Alliance, reminding every new generation that strength, when tempered with wisdom, could unite the stars. ChatGPT